Let me disturb your salads if I can. Well, welcome everybody. And I say everybody because we got oversubscribed, and thank you for coming. This was the first shot we've made at a dinner meeting for a long time, and we're very happy for the turnout. And now that we have our chancellor here with us, if he didn't walk out of the room,
the important thing.
in his absence, Mr. Whitelock, would you give us a very brief invocation to start the meeting? Would you all please rise?
For those that can't stand up, I'll pray for you later. Dear Heavenly Father, we come tonight to share a celebration of our anniversary, good friendships, comradeships, service to our society. And we appreciate very much that you have watched over these many years. Likewise, that you have ever, always made us mindful of your presence in our life. Give us thy grace, carry us safely home, and make sure that we understand the purpose for thy sake. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Tom.
Well, you know, he's either at the bar or he's either in the restroom. So, or either one.
I tell you, first liar doesn't have a chance. Okay. I would mention one thing right after having an invocation like that. Good thoughts and prayers for Judy Pinkerton. Jerry Pinkerton, our registrar, he and his wife were due here tonight and had a reservation. Judy had some very serious back operations and ran into little complications, so it took her a little long to convalesce, so she's not here tonight, so we're going to send good wishes to Judy. So with that, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And John Morton, since I can't pick on you to sing tonight, why don't you lead us in the pledge to the Texas flag?
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
And Mark Harrison, if you'll help me, please give us the affirmation of the SAR.
We descendants
of the heroes of the American Revolution, who by their sacrifices established the United States of America, reaffirm our faith in the principles of liberty and our constitutional republic, and solemnly pledge ourselves to defend them against every foe. Please be seated. And continue with your salads. Those of you who have salads, we're going to have more salads here in a minute.
I'm going to see if it's hot. A little more. I'm going to see it.
Yeah. Mark Harrison, good vice president, decided that he's going to check on the air conditioning because it seems just a little warm in here, so we'll work on it.
Yeah.
I want to add my...
Quick question.
Sure, you can go. Perfect. I got you covered. Again, I want to welcome...
We thought you were indisposed.
Tracy, your timing was perfect because Mr. Whitelock stepped in for you.
Excellent.
Absolutely. I want to welcome you all again. This is the first dinner we've done in a long time, but more importantly, we're celebrating tonight, as you can tell, and as we did back in July. This is the 90th anniversary of our chapter. And I'd like to introduce the person that was there at the founding, Tom Whitelock.
Be careful about that.
Yes. The meeting we will go through pretty quickly because we want to get to the food and we want to get to some more of Dave Tanner's wonderful entertainment. But I did want to talk a little bit about the things, or the people that are here tonight and recognize some of our special guests. First of all, in the back, friend of the chapter from the Jane Douglas Society of the DAR, Mrs. Linda Martin. Linda has been very active with our chapter and will be more in the future, and we reciprocate by working with herself and her ladies at the state fair, and we truly enjoy that effort. Also among us, we have the state president for the SAR and chapter member, David, excuse me. Thank you, David. David Jump. Sorry, I'm just getting over a cold, folks. We also have our state chancellor, who's now back in the room, Tracy Founders. Back from the bar. We have our inland registrar. Where is Jerry Brown? Jerry Brown, right back here. And then all the way in the back, we have our District 6 Vice President, Gary Lovell. Now, what I'd like to do tonight, and this was suggested by a number of the folks on the Advisory Council that we've been working on. And by the way, the Advisory Council is here tonight, so I would like to at least recognize the people that have helped me this year. In the back, Bill Richardson, and then we have Marshall Scanlon, and where's Tom Smith? Could you guys stand up just real quickly so they can recognize you for your work? Appreciate it. We also have some guys that I'm not very familiar with because I haven't seen them very often at the meetings, but I see one of them every year, and I see one of them occasionally, and I see one of them a lot. So I'm going to start with the one that I see a lot, and I want Robert Kittrell to come and talk to us a little bit about what he remembers of his early days in the chapter. Robert?
Is it working?
I will prepare a speech. I'll try to get through it as quickly as possible, so it's about a 2 or 3 minute speech. When I joined the Dallas chapter of the Sons of the American Revolution in 1962, that wasn't the founding. I wasn't one of the founding members of the SAR, but it goes back to 1930 for those interested in when the chapter began. But anyway, they held their meeting and breakfast in the Melrose Hotel on the second Saturday of each month. So we have followed that tradition, second Saturday of each month. It was the beginning of a decade of the 1960s in leadership and steady growth for the organization. Joe M. Hill Jr., the son of Judge M. Hill, was the president of the chapter, 1970 to 1971. His father was the president of the Dallas chapter in 1959 and 60. So, I'll go ahead and finish. And was one of the first chapter members I met at my meeting. Joe Hill really had a personality, and he had done so many things. He attained the rank of colonel in the U.S. Army during World War II and the Korean War, and remained in the U.S. Army Reserves for 31 years, retiring as the commandant of the United States Army Reserve School. After retiring from teaching boys and girls in ROTC locally for the Dallas School District, he served as secretary and treasurer of the chapter for 6 years, helping to forward 20 chapters in Texas, and received the Society's Gold Good Citizenship Medal, the Patriots Medal, and many other medals. He served as the Texar president. He was the most active with judges D. Brown Walker and John H. Bryant in awarding ROTC medals to the outstanding cadet in East Dallas High School, which later was extended to all of Dallas County, and good citizenship medals to the outstanding student in each junior high school. Furthermore, he was an active participant in awarding the citizenship papers along with the judges T. Whitfield Davidson and D. Brown Walker, who participated in the 4th of July parade project in downtown Dallas. Of course, we no longer do that. Colonel Hill and other chapter presidents, such as Brigadier General Graber Kidwell and Joseph B. Latimer, were responsible in having the chapter join the Military Order of the World Wars in massing the colors at SMU in 1963. In 1968, the chapter provided trophies to ROTC drill team and ROTC rifle team competition. So, awarding the certificate of honor to the survivor of a deceased Dallas County serviceman was started by President J. Ray Andrews. I think we no longer do that. Moreover, the chapter provided an SAR grave marker to the survivor of a deceased chapter member during his term. The chapter sponsored the oration on the state and national contest, which we uphold that tradition. And although the Dallas chapter had far fewer members than it does now, and of course no color guard or internet and social media, in the 1960s, it did grow steadily in membership during the decade, owed to the leadership of those early chapter presidents and its members.
I believe most everyone knows that I'll do this for the spouses. Last year at the state convention, I was honored to have dinner with Robert and his wife the night he received the Minuteman Award, which is one of the highest awards you can get for SAR. And it was a proud night for the table, proud night for the chapter, and proud night for my friend and his wife. It was such a good time. By the way, he is a member emeritus. He has more than 50 years in the SAR. Wow. We have two of those in the chapter, by the way. A gentleman who came to my attention through Mr. Whitelock, Hanson. Mark is a former chapter president as well, and was very, very active in our chapter for a long time. He has some memories that I would ask him to come forward and share with us tonight.
Can everyone hear me without the microphone?
No.
No? Then my Marine Corps training isn't going to hold me in good stead, I guess. It was about 2 weeks ago that I received an email from Tom Whitelock. I'll call him T1 for the purposes of this introduction. And he said, Mark, he said, if you're going to be attending the 90th anniversary dinner, we would really like you to say a few words about the history of the chapter from the date you joined the SAR. Well, I joined the SAR in 1992. And I thought to myself, and I replied to Tom's email, and I said, how much of this do you want me to cover, and how much time will I have? About a week later, I got an email from T2, Tom Van Ossen, and he said, You can take as much time as you like, but 4 to 6 minutes would be preferable. For the next 4 to 6 minutes at the rate of about 5 or 6 years per minute, let's take a trip down my memory lane. When I joined the SAR, as I said, it was 1992, and it was easy for me to choose the Dallas chapter as my home because the meetings were at 7:30 on Saturday mornings and ended by about 9 or 9:30, so you had the whole day to do whatever the rest you wanted to do that day. And that appealed to me because I was a very busy starting lawyer at the time. But when I joined the Dallas chapter at that time, we had, and for several years afterward, had over 300 members. We were the largest SAR chapter in the world. Now, some of you are looking at me cockeyed and you're going, oh, wait a minute. The SAR is an American organization, right? Right. But we also have members in the UK and France and Germany, Mexico, Spain, and Switzerland. And so it ain't bragging to say we were the biggest in the world. It was true. The Dallas chapter's also been at the forefront of leadership at the state level, supplying our state society with 6 presidents in the past 28 years. Other than Bob Clark and David Temple, can you name any of them? Come on, Sisson.
In the last how many years?
28 years.
Well, yeah, let's see. From just the Dallas chapter.
Just the Dallas chapter. Okay, I'm not going to put you on the spot.
Right hand.
You are the leader.
Bob Clark?
Yes, you are.
My former law partner, Bill Edelman, and also
Graham Martin.
Graham Martin?
Graham Martin, and Clovis Breakbill, who went on to be next. Was that
Well, that was
more than 28 years?
That's before 1992. The answer is Colonel Graham Martin, Colonel Del Fowler, Robert Coker, Dick Arnold, Bob Clark, and David Temple, who are here tonight. Our chapter has also provided a number of other officers to the State Society, like Chancellor Tracy Pounders, sitting over there, his dad, who's now the state chaplain, Frank Pounders, and Registrar Jerry Brown, sitting at the back here, sitting in halfway to the back. You all know that the purposes of our society are patriotic, historical, educational, and social. When I think of the patriotic purpose, I can think of nothing better to epitomize it than our magnificent color guard and its many appearances at parades honoring the 4th of July, Medal of Honor recipients, and other veterans, and at the naturalization ceremonies for new citizens that frequently occur in our town. When I think of our historical purpose, I think of people like the late Lloyd Bachstruck, a longtime director of the Dallas Public Library's genealogical section, and Clovis Breakbill, who Bob Clark mentioned earlier. He was a former President General of the National Society, and he authored a book that I forgot to bring up to the podium, but my wife is going to hold up, recording all the American Revolutionary War graves in Texas. All the graves of American Revolution veterans in Texas. That was in 1998. Another of our compatriots, who while he was State Society Chancellor, had a small hand in the formation of the Texar Archive housed at the University of North Texas. When I think of the educational purpose, I think first and foremost of our former chapter president, Gary Sisson. And Gary's reenactments of Patrick Henry's Liberty or Death speech, how many times have you given that presentation, Gary?
It was right at 120 over an 11-year span.
Just amazing.
Oh, I'm sorry, my wife corrected me. It was 150 apparently.
She heard every one, evidently.
She heard some of them.
If you don't have it already, Beth, if you hold up that DVD that I left on the table too.
It's also on YouTube.
You need to hear Gary give this speech if you all haven't already heard that.
I've retired.
It's only available on DVD.
And YouTube.
Also thinking about the educational purposes of the chapter, the desk at the DAR house during the state fair is something that was taken over by us after I started. Not to mention the free parking and free admission to the fair that went along with it. I can tell you my family really appreciated that. Of course, it's already been mentioned briefly, but there have been hundreds and hundreds of medals and certificates we've awarded to first responders, ROTC cadets, and good citizens in the Dallas schools, and our sponsorship of many oration, essay, and poster contest winners. I'd like to recognize John Morton, who's been our poster contest chairman for years and years. Finally, on the social side, in 1992 and for several years afterward, we met at a Wyatt's Cafeteria at Marsh and Forest Lanes. We moved during my presidency to first the Highland Park Cafeteria in Casa Linda, and then to a Luby's on Mockingbird. And after my term of office, then we moved to the Embassy Suites Hotel at 635 and 75, before finally landing through the good graces of Charles and Barbara Baker at the Presbyterian Retirement Village dining room, where we continue to hold our meetings. The latest venue has suited us perfectly ever since, because as the joke in our chapter goes, the average age of our members is deceased. Also on the social side, and in conclusion, permit me to single out one individual who unfortunately is not here tonight with us. But I want to recognize him in particular for his warmth and his kindness and his perfect record of attendance at our chapter meetings for just about every one of those 30 years. And that's a record that will never, ever be broken. Ralph McDowell. Thank you very much.
Well done. Appreciate it. One of the accomplishments I found out that Mark completed when he was the chairman or the president was he instituted the 5-minute speaking rule. We still use that.
Timing.
And moving along, some more history for you. The kind of the editor-in-chief when it comes to the what we call the Gary Sisson Golden Sledgehammer Award. Now, some of you know about it, some of you don't. But if you look around the room, you will see little hammers on some of the lapels of the people in the room. Some years ago, Mr. Sisson decided he wanted to at least congratulate some people who were doing hard work for the chapter, and he came up with this great idea. And without further ado, besides memory notes, could you tell us about the Golden Sledgehammer? Dr. Gary Sisson.
Thank you, Tom, too. You know, I'll just echo what Mark Hansen said about, how long I've been around, because I joined in 1994, 2 years after Mark Hansen joined. So after listening to Bob Kittrell, who's been in since the 1960s, I'll just say to Bob what, as Frank Sinatra would say, you make me feel so young. When I joined the Dallas chapter in 1994, so many of the movers and shakers in our chapter seem larger than life to me. Most of them have been mentioned, thankfully for me, so we won't have to necessarily revisit that, but compatriot Clovis Spragueville, who was a past president general. I mean, this guy was bigger than life to me. Joe Hill, who sponsored me, Colonel Joe Hill. Remember Clyde Turner? Graham Martin, Lloyd Boxter, Art Ingalls, Cliff Slagle, Dick Arnold, Henry Rather, Jack Carney, John Waterfield. We could go on and on and on. Those amazing men and others who are still with us. Some here tonight, some not. I see Bill Richardson back here. He's been here for a while with us. Ralph McDowell has been mentioned. Frank Pounders, Dr. Charles Baker. So many of you who all set such a great example of leadership and staunch defense of the principled endeavors and accomplishments of our forefathers. So that by the time I was given the privilege of leading this chapter, the foundation had been well established. Having had the good fortune of following compatriot Mark Hansen's outstanding presidency and the equally fortuitous association with an incredibly talented group of officers, the task was slightly less arduous than I had imagined. Nathan White, who many of you know, was state president at that time and went on to serve as president general. During that year, Dr. Charles Baker brought us our first real internet presence. He was the only one who knew how. The only real bump in the road was that the events of September 11th, 2001 happened on my watch. They made us stronger. And I got to say, it just has to be said here. Okay, you mentioned the golden sledgehammer, and I wasn't going to bring that up, but it just has to be said here that as I watched my officers do their work the year of my presidency, one of them seemed to give all his might to everything he did, always going above and beyond, a real overachiever. The best way I could think of to reward his hard work was to place a sledgehammer in his hand. I knew he would either wreck everything or build a better chapter. Fortunately, it was the latter. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Tom Whitelock. I'm glad you didn't stand because I was going to tell you to sit down, so that worked out well.
I learned my lesson.
Rather than making any lame attempts to take credit for any of the good things that happened during my tenure as Dallas chapter president, let me instead boast of the hard work of those who came before us and those who are still here to capably pass on this great legacy to those who are yet to continue the sometimes difficult tasks that make us both compatriots and patriots. Keep up the good work, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. And if you need to view what the sledgehammer looks like, we've got it over on the table there with a list of the previous winners. Next meeting in February, Gary will come back again, and I hope all of you and more will come, because that's going to be the meeting at which we designate the sledgehammer winner for 2019. So it's going to be a gala affair. Okay. Why don't we, because of the timing that it took, why don't we finish our dinner, all sit down for a few moments, and then we can have our dessert, and then we can go on with a few other issues, okay? While you're finishing your meals and before the dessert comes, I was having a discussion just a minute ago with former chapter president, former President General Bob Clark, and he mentioned something to me that might be of interest. Bob, could you come up and talk to us about maybe some of the missing time in the memory lane?
Yes, first I want to correct, I was never president general.
Oh, my bad. My bad.
Okay, but it was the culture. I joined in 1975, so I wanted to maybe be sandwiched in between what Mr. Kittrell talked about and what Mark Hansen spoke about. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yeah, but he's filming you. Up now, perfect.
Okay.
Now.
I don't want to break the camera.
The camera's on you.
This won't be on YouTube, will it?
No.
You never know.
We had a subculture, and I had not, my father had been in World War II. He was a non-com. He wasn't really into the military culture like the SAR. they were, the people that ran it were, I mean, it was Captain Brakebill. It was General Ramaji, who, by the way, had lived on my paper route when I was a kid. And we always just knew, I don't remember his first name. I just called him General Ramaji. Lewis, okay. Did you know him?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting, very good guy, great guy. And these people were well-spoken, very nice. And we always used to joke, because some of us that had just gotten out of college, you know, we kind of like to sleep late on Saturday morning. These guys were used to reveling. I mean, you got to business, you went down, had your breakfast. By the way, we've had numerous people in the state SAR who've come down and say, well, it really doesn't work. You get a lot more members if you had it on a night. And this has always worked for our chapter. It always has. My years after knowing Bill Edelman, we became law partners. And he was going up and became Secretary General until he had health problems. And he had not been in the military, but he had been a lawyer during World War II. And so he was one of the people that actually went out with some other people, including Nathan White, that formed the Plano chapter. So really, they're kind of a follow-up from us. I don't have the exact year, but I believe it might have been a little before Mark came in. I'm not sure. All I know is on their founding dinner, Mr. Edelman said, hey, come on, they're going to have it at the steakhouse. And I said, I'm all in. So it was, and they have theirs on Tuesday night. And they've been very successful. Our state chapter, at one point, we weren't number one in size because they passed something in the state of Kentucky to just have one chapter for the entire state, and everybody would be in it. We kind of thought that was dirty cool, but it worked. And so I just wanted to talk about the culture and going on and how we proceed. Many of us that were, and I have not been in 50 years, I've only been in about 46 years, but I did always get, I kept my membership up, but you go through, I went away to Oklahoma for 3 years to go to law school, various things like that, and the same people, a lot of the same people were there. We've had people that had spent very years, and the names that have been mentioned tonight are just bring back so many memories for me, and particularly those, I would say, in the last 20 years when I got reactivated. Some of you may remember when I brought my daughter when she was like 3 or 4 years old on Saturday mornings, and people would give her the $2 bill. I think I don't know if we still do that. Ralph would do that. By the way, my daughter is now a first-year law student. So anyway, and I'll bring her back. She's very active in the DAR. And so is my wife. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here. But I just wanted a chance to kind of bookend the time when Mark kind of got me active. Even though he joined in '92, I was getting reactive. I kept my membership. And Mark was the state chancellor. And some of these, and he changed jobs, and he wound up tapping me and asking me if I would take over as state chancellor. I wound up doing that, becoming a state president one time, and being active on the national scene, as well as we've got a number of people that are also active here. So I believe it's so great that what we've got. I believe there have been some histories written, and maybe those could be condensed and updated and maybe distributed, at least on the internet, so we wouldn't have to do the printing. I don't know what our status is on having a chapter history updated, but we have in the past. So anyway, I want to thank y'all, and thank y'all all for coming, and I really enjoy it. And I commiserated with my my friend here, David Temple. I remember when he got in, he's done a lot of work, probably more work than I've ever done. But and he's got a couple more months. I don't know if he's going to speak tonight, but he's telling me how many chapters he's attended. So he may be getting tired. When you're state president, you get one or two speeches about the state of the state society and of the chapter society, but also you get a little spiel, something about some battle or something that hasn't really been promoted a lot, and that you can enlighten people. That some of the chapters around the state actually have joint meetings, joint dinners with the DAR. I believe they do that in Lubbock, in various places. So anyway, we're a wonderful organization. It's got chapters all over the nation and in Europe. A friend of mine, we became good friends, met him in Louisville. He actually is in the French Society, and have run into him in Europe and various places. So it's quite a group and quite a history, and it's something we're never going to grow that fast because you have to do a lot of work to join. You have to do a lot of applications and get things together, paperwork. It's not it's not like join the Rotary or some of the men's luncheon clubs. You've got to do a lot to do it, to join. So anyway, thank you all for letting me speak.
I think we're in the process of getting our desserts, so as soon as we get that done, we'll,
Oh, yeah.
as soon as that gets done, we'll continue our program.
Mark, I got the pleasure of spending That's how I got it.
We still have a few more desserts coming out, so just stay with it. A couple things came up while I was visiting with the tables. Is everybody in the room in pretty good voice?
Yes,
Okay. And I know that John Morton is always in good voice.
yes he is.
And I think tonight would be a good time to practice singing Happy Birthday to Mary Scantlin, who's sitting right back here. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mary. Happy birthday to you. For some of those who have not had a chance to hear Mary speak, she does a terrific talk about her father in World War II, and there's not a dry eye in the house when she gives it. It's been pointed out to me, and I'm sorry I didn't recognize this earlier. Besides Linda being here as our guest, I have come to see that there are a number of members of the DAR in our house tonight. So if you take a minute, would you please, the ladies who are any member of any chapter, any society of DAR, would you please stand up? Now, Linda, if I remember correctly, the last time you and I had a conversation, I think I was kind of braggadocious that we were pushing 35,000 in Texas or national for SAR. And I think you looked at me and you were very, very nice about it. You said, well, that's good. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, it's a good start. I said, a start on what? You said, well, we're at about 195,000 and growing. So you do a great job. And I believe that you had a few words you wanted to say.
No, go ahead.
Just to brag on DAR for a minute, sorry.
Please.
We just signed our 1 millionth member.
Oh,
Wow. Now, another one is not still with us, but we just signed our 1 millionth member. I just wanted to say on behalf of Joan Douglas Chapter that we wanted to present you with a certificate congratulating you on 90 years of service to your community, service to your state, in service to your country. We appreciate everything you do and all the friendship we've had.
Fantastic. Can I have all of the members up here? Bring all the members. Everybody, come on, come up here. Everybody up front.
You state region?
I am the chapter leader of Jane Douglas.
How are you? Good to see you. Come on, guys, come on. We want to get SAR.
Hey, he's the president.
She's making a presentation to our chapter. I want our chapter up here.
I'll get back here.
I know. Come on.
I like this backward bat.
Hold the basketball. Come on. Here, we do it like soccer. Yeah, we can do that.
Don't keep me seen back there.
We're back row Baptist. I'll get this little space between you two.
I will make sure I'm behind.
Yeah, get behind Tom. You'll be seen for sure then.
Where's the cameraman so I can get it right?
Just remember, if you can't see the camera can't see you.
Yay. Mission accomplished.
Careful there, old man. Careful there.
Hurry.
Somebody hold him.
Feel the heavenly frame.
Touched by an angel.
That's it.
Pull his pants down while he got a chance.
Very good.
That was Mark Hanson's idea, I just said it. Mark, you have a dirty mind. How dare you? Damn Marines. Damn jarheads.
Oh, because I know better.
We've got one last piece of business before we let David cut loose for the evening. At our December meeting, we voted on a slate of officers for 2020. And so tonight, we're going to install our new 2020 officers. The good news is there's 3 of us here. The bad news is we're not all here. We have some sickness and we have some out of towns that couldn't make it. So I'm going to ask State President David Temple if he would come up and adjudicate for us and swear in the new officers.
Swear at him good, Dave.
Swear at him good, is that what
Swear
he
these
said?
in and swear at the other ones.
Tell everybody what your officer position is going to be. They may not know.
Oh, okay, yeah. Tom Van Fossen, I will be the president again next year.
Mark Harrison, first vice president.
That's a good job.
Nick Harper, treasurer. You understand that the man who's standing here, and here, and here, and here, is yet to come up. We got your name. We know, you don't get any valet parking here.
And they think you're kidding, Tom. All right, gentlemen, please raise your right hand. Having been duly elected to the office in the Dallas chapter, Texas Society, Sons of the American Revolution, do you promise and swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution and bylaws of the National Society, Sons of the American Revolution? And do you further promise and swear that you will faithfully discharge the duties of your office to the best of your knowledge and ability, and that you will at all times conduct yourself in a manner worthy of our society, so help you God?
I do.
All right, President Van Fossen. It really is loose. I'll give you your gavel, or return your gavel to your hand. And compatriots of the Dallas chapter, I would note that your officers are officially installed. Your duty is to provide support, assist them, encourage them as they discharge their duties, thus furthering the principles and purposes of the Sons of the American Revolution. Congratulations, gentlemen. Thank you, David. Try not to kill this thing.
Now it's fun time. When I first talked to David a few days ago, I really didn't know him, and I'm ashamed to tell everybody I forgot his bio.
I forget it all the time.
But I've come to find out, just going through the group tonight, most everybody in here knows David. Or
And they
has
came
heard,
anyway.
or has heard David. In any event, through the work that Ann and our friend treasurer, Mr. Harper, helping me to work on this meeting. They suggested David a long time ago, because they've been long-time patrons of his, as he has done a lot of work with them. And Ann and Nick, I want to tell you both, I appreciate the work that you spent, time you spent with me and working on this, and Mark Harrison. I don't know how you left here this afternoon at 4:30 and got home dressed. I don't know how you did that. Well done. And thanks for your help, and for everybody else who had something to do with it. And of course, Tom Whitelock, as much as I kid with Tom, it doesn't happen without him. By the way, those centerpieces, they were donated by Tom, and pick somebody at the table and take one home. And remember the 90th anniversary. Okay? All right, without further ado, David, your time in the entertainment business is how long?
50 years full-time.
Full-time. Okay. And during that period of time, you've had a number of stops and a number of avenues. Can you talk about that?
I guess.
Okay, will you?
Sure. 50 years ago, I got out of North Texas. I didn't graduate. I just got out of North Texas and came down here because I thought they needed a piano player, but they didn't. And it was, I spent a year delivering furniture. My family had a furniture store on Lover's Lane called Tanner Furniture, and so I delivered furniture. And then about a year later, Ed Burnett of the Levy Singers and the Levy Night Club, Ed Burnett called me, and I've been working ever since. And bless Ed Burnett. And thanks to Ed Burnett, I got into doing commercials. I've done 300 commercials, and thanks to that, I got to be with Kim Dawson Agency, and I did 8 movies, some of which are actually not terrible. The Trip to Bountiful was one of them. I used to do trivia on the radio with David Gold and Kevin McCarthy and Ed Bush going way back. Fifth generation Texan. My mother was DAR in Gainesville, Texas, and it's just, it's been wonderful, and it beats the heck out of working.
Why? So your mother is DAR?
Yes, 2 relatives, Joseph Marion, brother of Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox, and George Rogers Clark, who conned the Indians in Cahokia into not going on the warpath because he told them that his mighty army, which was him and 2 other guys, would come clean. Anyway, We still have a lot of used car salesmen in my family, but he was the best one.
And what is your national number or your state number in the SAR?
I was in the children of the American Revolution.
So
I've never been a...
You didn't graduate.
I did not yet. I'm still in the children of the American Revolution.
Jerry Brown. We have a person here we should probably talk to.
May I ask him a question?
Sure, please do.
How many of those movies were you the leading man?
None. No, if it was a terrible movie, I had a big part, and if it was a pretty good movie, I had a little bitty part. So, my biggest part was in a movie with Sam Elliott about Sam Houston called Gone to Texas, and I was Colonel Hockley, his aide, and so I actually got to loiter with Sam Elliott, and it was wonderful. But usually I was there for about an hour and then gone again.
Love it.
Now the closing on this is we locked the door. Jerry brought the applications with him, and you'll have the leading part as soon as you sign. What was it Groucho Marx said? I don't want to be a member of any organization that would have me as a member. Be careful what you ask for here.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because now I'm up to speed.
Okay.
So about time for That's What I Like About Texas.
That is it. I've seen a lot of places, I've been around the world. I've seen some pretty faces, been with some beautiful girls. After all I've witnessed, one thing still amazes me. Just like a miracle, you have to see to believe, and here's what it is, children. God bless Texas with his own hand, dropped down angels from the promised land. He gave them a place where they could dance. Of course, I'm Baptist and we don't dance in front of each other. If you want to see the heaven, brother, here's your chance. I've been sent to spread the message. Say it with me. God bless Texas. I've been sent to spread the message. Say it like you mean it. God bless Texas. Who's who and what's what. So if you are a native Texan, if God loved you so much that you took Texas history in the 7th grade, let's see them hands. Because I got a job for all y'all. Hands down, thank you very much. And for those of you who don't know, all y'all is the plural of y'all. Okay, now, if you're a native Texan, you're going to know that every single thing I'm saying today is true. Don't buy into that vicious rumor started by Yankees way up north in Oklahoma that we exaggerate. We don't have to exaggerate here in Texas. But what might happen is somebody at your table may not speak with no accent the way we do, okay? And so if they seem dubious, if they seem skeptical of your job when I'm saying something wonderful about Texas, is to put the hairy eyeball on them and go, that's right. Or if you're from a fellow Baptist, you say amen, okay? I'm sure you get at least 3 syllables out of it. All right, now then. But there's another proud group of Texans here. It's a group that included Sam Houston and Stephen F. Austin. These are proud adoptive Texans. You weren't born here, but you got here quick as you could. Do we have any adopted Texans in the room? All right, God love you, God love you. All right, now those of you who are adopted Texans, I know you love Texas with all your heart. But if you didn't take Texas history, your head may not know why. All right? So your job is to listen up, listen tight, Pilgrim, because your job is to listen up so the next time you go back to home, wherever that used to be, and they say, what's so special about Texas? You can give them both barrels, okay? I think I saw every hand, but just in case, if you're not a native Texan, if you're not an adopted Texan, do we have any squatters in the room? Anybody wandering through? Okay, all right. What do you consider home?
Virginia.
Virginia, I've heard of it. They have 4 real seasons. They call their 4 seasons spring and summer and fall and winter. We call our 4 seasons almost summer, summer, still summer, and Christmas. All right, but you tell the folks back in Virginia they do have 4 seasons in Texas, but they are the birthplace of presidents. It's a wonderful thing to have here. And by the way,
I'm not going to pick on you. Texans do not pick on folks from everywhere else. We pick on ourselves. We are so big, we pick on us. Where do you think Aggie jokes came from? All right? But if you want to send a little extra love, send those love vibrations over to Virginia right now. Okay? And during the course of this, we'll be doing some educational stuff for Virginia, and it'll be just a wonderful thing. We'll all come out of here knowing a little bit more about us as Texans. Now, one of the things even people in Virginia know, people all over the world know Texas is big, right? But you may not know how big Texas actually is. Do you know that even after we gave up half of New Mexico and a little tiny part of Colorado and gave up a little bit of Oklahoma and up in the Panhandle, do you know we're still bigger than the original 13 colonies combined? We are. Texas is bigger than all that land that our ancestors fought for back in the Revolutionary War. We are so big, we've got 2 accents. We're too big for one accent. The dividing line is where the West begins, which is Fort Worth. From Fort Worth West, they speak in the Southern Midlands. From Fort Worth East, we speak in the Cumberland dialect, because a lot of our ancestors just came right on down from Virginia and the Carolinas and on into Texas, and they brought that way of speaking with them. And if you want to know whether someone is from East Texas or West Texas, all you have to do is ask them what this building is we're standing in. If they say it's a hotel, if they can get at least 3 syllables out of it, you know they're from Eastern Texas, because the further east you go, the more syllables you get. You go to Jefferson, you'll get 5 syllables out of a word like dirt, because it just goes on and on. West Texans don't add syllables, they add emphasis. West Texans don't say hotel, they say hotel. If they have a problem in the hotel, they call the police. All right? Let me give you an example of this. There's a car driving down the street in Fort Worth, which is how they say it over there, Fort Worth. And in this car, there is the TCU quarterback, 2 TCU halfbacks, and the TCU fullback. My question is, who's driving the car? Police. Okay, there you go. All right. Keeps on giving. All right, now then. Now, because Texas is so big, we had to come up with our own way of speaking the English language. We did. And nobody else does it the way we do. Everywhere else on earth that they speak English, they form the superlative of putting EST at the end of a word. It was kind of windy yesterday. But the day before that, it was windier. That's the comparative. And the day before that, remember the weekend, and it was the windiest day of all, and there was snow and all. Well, we don't put nothing into our words, because we already put SO at the beginning. It was so windy. That's the Texas way. It gives us a chance to do something unique, colorful, alliterative, uniquely Texan. It was so windy. It was so windy, I saw a chicken lay the same egg 3 times. It was so hot last summer, it was so hot, I saw a dog chasing a cat, and they was both walking. It was so dry. It was so dry out on Lake Louisville, out where I live. It was so dry that the fish were carrying canteens. It was so dry, the lifeguards only had to know how to wade. It was that dry. I'll tell you how dry it was. It was so dry, the Baptists, they told me if I took the medicine, I wouldn't hear that anymore. I'm going to have to up my dose. It was so dry on Lake Louisville, the Baptists were sprinkling, the Methodists were spitting, and the Catholics were giving rain checks. That's how dry it was. Now, the name of this program is That's What I Like About Texas, and that's something I like about Texas. We are Texans are volunteers. We are people who just step up and solve problems. You're going to get mowed down if you get between a Texan and a problem. But every Texan, every group of Texans has their own unique way of solving problems. There are 95 different cultural, regional, ethnic, religious groups came together to make Texas what it is today, and all of them have their own way of solving problems. And I learned this last fall up in my hometown of Gainesville, up in Cook County, last stop before the casino. That's where I'm from. Anyway, up in Gainesville, for some reason, we had more pecans, we had more acorns than anybody had ever seen, ever. So many, the squirrels ran out of places to put them. And they found those up in the church attics down on Church Street and Denton Street, those beautiful brick-lined streets in Gainesville. They found that they could put lots of nuts up in the attics. And I'm telling you, on a Sunday morning, it sounded like there was a bowling alley upstairs in the churches. And the Presbyterians met first, because that's the Presbyterian way. Do we have any Presbyterians here? All right, Presbyterians, all right. He's got my check, I better be careful here. The Presbyterians met first. You were always my favorite. Okay. They met first. to solve this problem, and the elders, got together. And it was going great. They had all these creative suggestions till this one real elderly elder said, we can't do nothing. It was predestined. Oh yeah. So that the Presbyterians were stuck with their squirrels, but not the Methodists down the street. Have any Methodists in the room? Methodist is like the I'm okay, you're okay corral. It's wonderful. It's just so welcoming. And they said, we got to solve this problem the way John Wesley had done it. And they figured somehow that old John Wesley would have gone down to the county extension agent and gotten one of them live traps where you can catch the squirrels, you don't hurt them. And that's what they did. They caught every Methodist squirrel. They took it down to Leonard Park, across the highway, turned them all loose. 2 weeks, they were all back. It was up to us, the Southern Baptists, the way it always is in Texas, to solve this problem the Baptist way, and we did. We made our squirrels members of the church. Now they only come twice a year. That's the way we do it in our church. Now, because Texas is so big, and because there have been so many talented people live here, I used to tell people at the conventions where I played, I could go through every letter of the alphabet, and for each letter I would have a Texas singer, a Texas composer, a Texas song, some musical connection. But these people had heard that rumor that we exaggerate, and they said, son, you're going to have to prove it. So here's what I said. Every letter of the alphabet reminds me of Texas tunes, those pretty little ditties. Every Texan croons, the people and the places, we know them all by name. I hope y'all like this sampler for my Texas Hall of Fame. A could be Amarillo by morning, up from San Antonio. B could be for Bob Wills. They say he's still the king. He practically invented the sound known as Western swing. And B could also stand for Buddy Holly too, that Lubbock boy who sang about his love for Peggy Sue. Now C could be the Cotton-Eyed Joe. Perhaps you've heard of it. Why, when people dance this song, do they always shout a real tacky word? Which in the original Spanish was El Toro Boom Boom, was what it was. All right, we'll just go on past that. Let's go to D, and D could be for Ding Dong Daddy from Dumas, or it could be Big D, my oh yes. Big D, little A, no little A, S, or it could be this song. It's going to require a little audience perspiration. Get your hands ready. The stars at night are big and bright. Deep in the heart of Texas reminds me of the one I love. Deep in the heart of Texas, Legion bloom is like perfume. What's the problem here? Deep in the heart of Texas. Are you from Texas? No. Oh, okay. Well, there's the answer to the question. It reminds me of the one I love. Oh, thank you for that spontaneous round of applause. E, out in the West Texas town of Laredo. I'm going to work on some geography and some spelling. I fell in love with the Mexican girl. F does for ever cross your mind. G, Galveston, oh Galveston, which is next to H. Going back to Houston, Houston, Houston. I. Here's one by Charlie Pride from Sledge, Mississippi, but he's called Texas home for over 50 years now. Is anybody going to San Antonio or Phoenix, Arizona? J? Well, J could be for jackpot. We got so many names like Jazz, Nora Jones, Tex Beneke, and Harry James, and J is Waylon Jennings, another brilliant Texas flame. It's also for Janis Joplin. And Scott Joplin of ragtime fame. It was Scott Joplin out of Texarkana said, K is Kenny Rogers or Chris Christopherson to me. One sang about Lucille and the other wrote Bobby McGee. L. Well, looking back at Lubbock, Texas in my rearview mirror, or let's go to look at my Texas. Yeah, with Raylan and Willie and the boy. It is a hip room. All right, M. And it's the one that I was telling you about during the dinner hour. M could be for Johnny Mathis from Gilmer, or maybe Neil McCoy, or maybe Bill Mack. There's another good old Texas boy. N is Willie Nelson. He's had hits for 60 years. O is Roy Orbison. His song Crying left me in tears. That CP is for the Pecos, where Judge Roy Bean plied his trade. Today we know it from a Tanya Tucker song, Pecos Promenade. Q could be for Quitman. Ain't been there, y'all. home of Sissy Spacek, who sang as the coal miner's daughter. R can be for Leanne Rhymes, but I'm going to make it my favorite Texas song of all since I've already heard you sing Happy Birthday. I want to hear you sing the Red River Valley. Come and sit by my side if you love all beautiful. Do not hasten to bid me adieu. Just remember the Red River Valley and the cowboy who loved you so true. Now S is San Antonio, as every Texan knows. From the San Antonio stroll to Bob Will's San Antonio Rose. T, Texas, our Texas, that's our official tune. But it could also be for Tex Ritter, sang that great song in High Noon. Do not forsake me, oh my darling. I love that movie. You could be for Uvalde, from which Dale Evans hailed. I know it's what Dale was thinking about when she wrote Happy Trails to you till we meet again. B could be for Van Cliburn, pianist personified, or Stevie Ray Vaughan. Texas joy and pride. W, waltz across Texas with you in my arms. Waltz across Texas with you. B, W. All my exes live in Texas. That's why I hang my hat in Tennessee. And of course the letter Y must be the yellow. Rosa Texas is the only girl for me. Now Z is Z, Z top. Those foot-long beards look strange, but two generations hop when they sing about LaGrange. Whoever letter of the alphabet reminds me of Texas tunes, those pretty little ditties. Every Texan croons, the people, the places, we know them all by name. I hope y'all like this sampler from my Texas Hall of Fame. If you did say yeehaw, yeehaw, oh yeah. Some of you were not lucky enough to be born in Texas, but you may have found that when you got here, you were home. I had a fella telling me that he didn't realize that he hadn't really felt at home where he was till the Air Force let him off in San Antonio, and all of a sudden he was home. He's been home ever since in Texas. It was that way for David Crockett. In January of 1836, he crossed over up near Honeygrove, up between Bonham and Paris, and he came into Texas, started hunting, started fishing, fell in love, wrote this letter back to his family in Tennessee. And here's a quote. He said, "As to what I've seen of Texas, it is the garden spot of the world, the best land, the best prospects I ever saw." He goes down to San Antonio, falls in with another proud adopted Texan by the name of Jim Bowie. Now Jim Bowie, for those of you who don't know, Jim Bowie had spent his whole life before he came to Texas getting in and out of one fracas, one scrape after another. But he came to Texas, and by Jim Bowie's standards, he settled down. He got married. He married into the Mexican aristocracy. If you've ever seen the Veramendi Palace in San Antonio, that's the family he married into. Ursula Veramendi was his wife. It also gave him a whole new family here in Texas, including a cousin named Santa Anna. That whole fracas at the Alamo was a family reunion gone bad. This is true. Now, a lot of what we know about what went on inside the Alamo are from the letters that were written by a proud adopted Texan by the name of William Barrett Travis. On February 24th, 1836, he said, "I am surrounded by 1,000 or more of the enemy under Santa Anna. They are receiving reinforcements daily and will no doubt grow to 2,000 or 3,000 in the next 4 to 5 days. They've demanded our surrender at discretion. Otherwise, the garrison are to be put to the sword if captured, and I've answered that demand," and this is the only thing John Wayne got right, "with a cannon shot." He got that part right. "I've answered that demand with a cannon shot. Our flag still waves proudly from the walls. So I call on you then in the name of liberty and all that is dear to the American character, come to our aid with all dispatch. But if this call is neglected, I'm determined to sustain myself as long as possible and to die as a soldier who never forgets what is due his own honor and that of his country." And he signed it in a real Texas way. I love this. Victory or death. That's a Texas attitude right there. Now, children all over Texas, all over the world, know what happened just before dawn, Sunday, March 6th, 1836. That family reunion came to a tragic conclusion, and for the next 4 weeks, 5 weeks, it looked bleak for the Texian cause. But 6 weeks later, April 21st, 1836, at a horseshoe bend of the Buffalo Bayou that we call San Jacinto, because we won and we can mispronounce it any way we want to. Sam Houston and his 600 men looked across the plain there, and he saw that Santa Anna, the Napoleon of the West, he called himself, Santa Anna had made a bone-headed tactical error. He and his 1,500 men had pitched camp in that horseshoe bend. There was nothing but swamp and Peggy's Lake behind them. There was nowhere to send out flankers or to retreat. It was the best chance Santa was going to get. So he lined up these cannons called the Twin Sisters. They were gifts of the citizens of Cincinnati. And he said to his men, remember Goliad. Remember the Alamo. And he said charge. Now when 600 take on 1,500. By the way, sometimes you'll read that he had 900. That was after the battle. I was there. I was there. About 600 men charged across that plain. 600 against 1,500. You can expect a lopsided score. And they got one. 18 minutes later, the Battle of San Jacinto was over, and Sam Houston lost 9 men. Santa Anna lost 1,500, killed, wounded, captured, missing, and the next day when Santa Anna was brought to the surrender oak before Sam Houston, he was ticked. He said it wasn't fair.
No.
It wasn't. He said it wasn't fair because he wasn't ready. He said he wasn't ready because he was entertaining. Some of you may have heard this story. There was a young lady in his tent. And her name was Monica. No, wait. That's a different. That's a different. It's those presidents, you know. Anyway, her name was Emily Morgan, a young free woman of color, a quadroon, 1/4 African, 3/4 Anglo. Texans called her skin tone high yeller. And they say it was for Emily who kept Santa Anna occupado for the first critical moments of the Battle of San Jacinto, that we wrote the most famous Texas song of all. There's a yellow road in Texas I'm going to see. No other man could miss her half as much as me. She cried, so when I left her, it to broke my heart. And if I ever find her, we never more will part. She's the sweetest little rosebud Texas ever knew. Her eyes are bright as diamonds, they sparkle like the dew. You can talk about your Clementine and sing of Rosalie, but the yellow rose of Texas is the only girl for me. There we go. Now, once in a while, I have, are any of these stories true? And I go, I'm from Texas. I don't know. They grow, you know. But they say, is that story true? And I go, you know, you used to hear people say that story that I just told you about the yellow rose. And then the scholars, the revisionists, would say, oh, no. Yellow Rose of Texas didn't come along as a song until the 1850s. It was way too late to be associated with that. But down in the archives at the University of Texas, school down in Austin, they found a handwritten copy of the lyrics of that song from 1836, referring to her as the sweetest rose of color Texas ever knew. I'm going with that story. Now, Sam Houston's an interesting fella. He was born in Virginia. He was raised in Tennessee. He was the governor of Tennessee before coming to Texas, being the general of the army, president of the republic, governor of Texas, senator from Texas. It was a lot like being in the Dallas chapter of the Sons of the American Revolution. They just put you in an office and say, you're doing a great job. We're going to just keep moving you around here a little bit more. The pay was about the same. But Sam was somebody who's always stepping forward. That's what Texans do. Somebody mentioned to Robert E. Lee, after a climactic battle in the war between the states, he was told that a number of his Texans had died. And he said, I will wager none were shot in the back. Texans are always coming forward. I don't see how we could have won World War II without Texas. Let's talk about this. Let's see. The most decorated unit of the Second World War was the Texas 36th Division. Okay? The most decorated individual soldier was Audie Leon Murphy. So poor growing up, his mother would send him out to fetch dinner with one bullet. He got really good. Real good. Let's see, the guy in charge of the whole Pacific Fleet was from Fredericksburg. Chester Nimitz, the guy in charge of ground forces in the Pacific, was one of those that got to Texas as quick as he could. Douglas MacArthur was an altar boy growing up in San Antonio. But the guy in charge of the European theater of operation was born in Denison. Dwight David Eisenhower, and for those of you from Kansas, yes, we know. Against his will, his family forced him to move to Kansas. But you know, psychologists tell us your personality is completely formed by the age of 2. We had Ike all the time we needed to bring out that leadership potential in him. I'm so proud of this, one Texas institution of higher learning sent more generals to the Army in World War II than West Point did. What Texas school? Texas, there were more Aggie generals. And I know that's a spooky thought for some of y'all, but anyway, there were more Aggie generals than there were West Point generals. For me, oh no, I spent the 7 happiest years of my life as an undergraduate at Texas A&M. And I treasure the associate's degree that I earned there. More than any other material possession, but not everybody feels that way. And of course, that's why Aggie jokes were invented by jealous people. But anyway, and for those of you from Virginia, let me explain an Aggie joke. Fellow walks into a bar, says to the bartender, "Want to hear an Aggie joke?" And the bartender just bristles. He says, "Before you tell an Aggie joke in this bar, you better see this is an Aggie ring I'm wearing. That's our sheriff. He's an Aggie. There's our judge. He's an Aggie." He said, "Do you still want to tell that Aggie joke in here?" The guy says, "Not if I have to explain it 3 times. No, I don't." Well, let me tell you what Senator Phil Graham said. He said, "I gave 25 years of my life teaching basic economics, first in College Station and then in Washington, D.C. I'm here to tell you all, Aggies is smarter than congressmen." Amen. All right. But that's something else we love in Texas. We love our politicians. You cannot beat our politicians. They're so colorful. They're so wonderful. I think we have the best politicians money can buy right here in Texas. Where else but Texas would we kick Paul Ferguson out of the governor's mansion and replace him with his wife? At a time when women had only just gotten the vote. She never held office. She never voted before. Women had just gotten the vote. Nellie Taylor Ross in Wyoming became the first governor. 2 weeks later, Ma Ferguson became the second woman governor in America. And it scared the press corps down there to death because they didn't know what she was for and what she was against. So they had this press conference, and one of the questions 90 years ago was, "Ma, what do you think of bilingual education?" And I'm so proud that our elected governor, Ma Ferguson, went on the record as being the first and only politician ever in American history to oppose bilingual education on religious grounds. She said if English was good enough for Jesus Christ, it's good enough for the children of Texas. Sort of ended the debate right there. And we Texans liked it so much we elected her again. Where else but Texas would you elect a guy who could not complete a simple subject and predicate without tripping over it? Like Gib Lewis from Fort Worth. Gib Lewis, we made him Speaker of the House 5 times. 5 times he was Speaker of the House. We would have elected him the 6th time, but he took a plea deal. But anyway, that 5th time, that's a true story. The 5th time, nobody else had done that before, and he's speaking from the well, the House of Representatives. And he looks out on that august body. And for the first time in his life, Gib Lewis was overcome with modesty. And he said this quote. He said, "Today, I am filled with humidity." I'm guessing he was. I'm pretty sure he was. And I want you to think, native Texans, adopted Texans, I want you to think for a minute with me. What is it that you're proudest of? When you say, "That's what I love about Texas," what do you love the most? Because to me, it's not that we're big and colorful and have really neat characters. It's the company it puts me in. When I say I'm a Texan, I'm connected back to those folks that came over from the Canary Islands. The King of Spain sent them over to San Antonio, and they started colonizing Texas. I'm thinking the folks that came with Stephen F. Austin and the folks that came 1 at a time, 2 at a time, 4 at a time, to find a new life and build it here in Texas. You are part of that group that generation by generation has found some way to leave Texas better than the way they found it. My mother was born in a farmhouse outside of Quinlan, and they had electricity. They had one little old light bulb hanging down in each of the 3 rooms. If the bathroom caught on fire, the danger was it might spread to the house. You needed a flashlight and shoes, you know. My mom and dad made Texas so much better for my brothers and me, and it's now our challenge to do that for our children and our grandchildren, and Texans always step up. But you know, we were talking earlier about 2001, 9/11. on 9/11, I had finished doing a speaking engagement in Lancaster, and I was driving up through downtown Dallas to go home. And there was a line of people all the way around Reunion Arena. And I got on the radio and go, what is this? Well, they were there to give blood. They had heard that at the Twin Towers and at the Pentagon and at the cornfield in Pennsylvania, somebody might need our blood, and it didn't matter that we didn't know them. They stood 4 hours in the September, Texas sun to roll up their sleeves. That's what Texans do. The other thing that hit me, and it was just about that same time, my wife, Gina, was finishing a 2-year sentence as president of the PTA. She knows. Just as school started that second year, we got a call from a friend of ours that was also on the PTA board with us. And she said, I've got a brand new neighbor. Haven't even shook hands with her yet, just sort of waved across the driveway. But I found out from the school counselor, Ms. Crowne, that she's got cancer and she's getting treatment. And I don't know her, but I know me. And if that was me in a brand new town, I'd be worried about my husband, my kids, not knowing where things were, not knowing anybody. I couldn't concentrate on getting me better. So I thought, why don't us PTA moms get together? And we'll each pick our day, and on our day, we'll go give a nice hot home-cooked meal to that family and see what we can do for them, find out what questions they may have the next day. Somebody the next day, all she'll have to do is get herself better, because her new Texas neighbors will be taking care of her family the way Texans do. Gina thought this was the essence of Texas, but since we didn't know them, we went to talk to the school counselor, Ms. Crowne, who is a precious lady, and I love her dearly, but she's from Virginia, and she's not from Texas, she's from somewhere else, and she didn't know what to think about this idea. And so, where she grew up, that's not what people do. She said, I don't know, let me talk to the dad. We sure don't want to bother them. And we're going, all right, who would be bothered if somebody cooked your dinner every day? Would that just, nothing to clean up, nothing to cook, nothing to buy? She said, let me talk to the dad and give them a choice. And I know Mrs. Crowne thought that she was saying something that made perfect sense. But you would have thought she had spit in Gina's eye. She pulled herself up to her full 4 feet 10, looked Ms. Crowne straight in the elbow, and said, choice. You want to give him a choice? Ham or chicken! That's what we call a choice in Texas. And that's the attitude in Texas that has made Texas better generation after generation. The way we're gonna love on you whether you like it or not. And it's why to this very day we can all still say, God bless Texas with his own hand. Brought down angels from the promised land. He gave them a place where they could dance. If you won't see heaven, brother, here's your chance. I've been sent to spread the message. Say it with me. God bless Texas. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot. If anybody here, wait a minute, I'm going to go into my Baptist preacher mode. If there's anybody here tonight, if there's anybody here who's saying, I wish my kids had heard this. I wish my relatives back in whatever it is could hear this. I wish Dave had a DVD of this program. Yay! Yes! He does. There's some over there, I've got some over here, they're $10, and I would be thrilled to talk to you about it, but remember, it's a DVD. It's for your television. Don't call me and say, it's not working on my CD player. I'll go, there's a reason for that. All right, well, okay, I've been sent to spread the message. Say it one last time. God bless Texas. Thank you all. Thank you.
Now I understand. Well done.
Thank you.
I'd like you to step up to this table here, if you would.
Wait a minute.
Carefully.
Who is this?
Yeah, dude.
All right, John.
John.
And I would like Nick Harper and Mark Harrison to join me up here for a minute.
On behind or?
No, you stay right here.
Okay, all right. Thanks for having me. Thank you, Dave. Great program. Been enjoying. Oh, really enjoyed that. Thank you so much. Those are the most wonderful socks I've ever seen.
Oh, well.
That's just fabulous.
That's why do you think he's state president?
I guess that's it.
They came with us. He said he can run.
They're rentals?
Who rents? We want to thank you.
Thank you.
We enjoyed it.
Me too.
Now I know more about you, and I gotta get one of your CDs. Do I?
DVD.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm from Virginia.
Sound more like Indiana, but that's.
Of course, I mean, Ohio. Yeah. Anyhow, thank you for a great evening entertainment.
It's a joy.
And we would love to have you look at being a member of the SAR.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We're ready. There we go.
Any day now.
There we go.
I'm up here.
Your eyes are up here.
Not sure what he's aiming at. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a pleasure. Thank you. Partner, did you hear that?
Yep.
We're rubbing up on you.
Thank you very much. Oh, hello. You can tell the night's almost done. Well, I hope you had a great evening.
You did.
I appreciate your attendance. As a matter of fact, the over-attendance, it was more than we expected, and I thank you for all of that. Maybe we can think about one of these again in the future. To all of our guests, all the sweet ladies and guests that came tonight, thank you for that and all the support that you give all of our chapter members. And I would say, oh, there's one piece of business. Is there anybody in the room when they drove in to park, did they get one of those tickets out of the machine where the gate opens?
Yes.
How many? Let me see hands. Let me tell you how this works. The good news is we got the rate on parking dropped to $5. It's usually $18, believe it or not. We got it to $5 in our contract. Mr. Nick did that. Well, what you have to do is you have to see me before you leave, because anybody that has one of those tickets, when you drive out, you're going to scan that ticket, and a price or something will come up, and then I'm going to give you another ticket, which you also scan. That drops the price to $5. Then you got to put a credit card in.
That'll work.
But it's for $5. And for those of you who got here late and didn't have a chance to check in with Mr. Harper, he will accept checks for your dinner whenever you can get them to him. Anyhow, enough business. All right, let's do this. Don't forget, February's meeting is marked. It's February the 8th. I think that's right, yeah, second Saturday, okay? I did have a couple other notes that I got in the mail from folks that couldn't come. We all remember Mike Pedritas, our former chapter president. He's being honored by the Greek Society this evening, and he could not make it, so he asked that I send some good words. And this one came from afar, from Cajun. George Ramford sent me a note, and he said that he would love to attend, but unfortunately business took him elsewhere, but he wished us well. Okay, with that, I would ask everybody to stand. And now that the Chancellor is in the building, would he give us a benediction?
Absolutely. Everybody, bow your heads in prayer. Father, our God, thank you for the privileges that you have given us, this life we have as Americans. Thank you for this privilege of being a member of an organization like the Sons of the American Revolution, where we have the charge to keep our American spirit alive, our American heritage going and in everybody's minds, and to spread the patriotic message. Thank you so much for watching over us in our daily lives and during this meeting, and watch over us as we all go home tonight. Thank you so much, and God bless America. Amen.
Amen.
Till we meet again.
If you will, would you please join me in the SAR recessional? Until we meet again, let us remember our obligations to our forefathers, who gave us our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, an independent Supreme Court, and a nation of free men.
Free men.
We're adjourned.
Don't forget, the centerpiece is going to first.
Yeah, Brad. Hey, good job. Sorry, I had a mental lapse in your name.
No, that's all right.
That was a good one.
In case you want one of those for your musician guest.
Good idea. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're not give them an opportunity to
Yes.
pay it back later.
Yeah.
Yeah.